Mr. Speaker, I'd love to hear from the Prime Minister on this. His silence is deafening. Now, the Prime Minister was found guilty on 4 sections of the Conflict of Interest Act. Wow. The only reason the RCMP didn't charge him was because he is the Prime Minister. So there's one law for the Prime Minister and another law for all the rest of us. The RCMP said the Prime Minister was off the hook because he could have granted himself permission to accept a luxurious vacation gift worth $215,000. So on what exact date did the Prime Minister act with impunity and grant himself the power to break the law?
On what date?
Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commissioner was very clear. The Prime Minister should have never gone on his fancy private island vacation. The trip was deemed to be illegal. Therefore, the $200,000 bill he sent to Canadians to pay for it is invalid. While the Prime Minister has a family fortune, many Canadian families are struggling to make ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck. So why is this wealthy Prime Minister thinking it's okay to send taxpayers the bill for his illegal vacation, and when will he do the right thing and pay them back?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The case for past Prime Ministers, and as is the case for this Prime Minister, whenever and wherever the Prime Minister travels, there are costs related to security. We always accept the advice of our security agencies as to how to best ensure the safety of the Prime Minister. As the Prime Minister has said, going forward, he will engage with the Commissioner's office to discuss personal and family vacations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Prime Minister may not want to answer questions in here, but he cannot hide from what the independent officer of Parliament concluded about his conduct. On the charge of improperly arranging his personal affairs, guilty. On the charge of accepting illegal gifts, guilty. On the charge of illegally accepting a ride on a private aircraft, guilty. On the charge that he engaged in illegal government business.
Order. As I have heard speakers, presiding officers say before in this place, we don't have chanting. We have one person asking a question, one person answering, and let's have the rest of the question.
On the charge that he engaged illegally in discussions about government business, guilty. The Prime Minister is guilty of breaking the law on 4 separate occasions. Why doesn't he do the right thing for once and pay back Canadian taxpayers?
Mr. Speaker, we're just trying to help Liberal cabinet ministers understand what the rules are. And so that's why I'm asking the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's cabinet is here and they're listening. He has an opportunity to inform them. If a minister, for example, got a $200,000 gift from someone who was lobbying that minister, would the Prime Minister take action? What action would he take? Would he fire the minister? Would he force them to give the gift back? Would he refer the matter to the RCMP or just shrug?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as has been the case for previous Prime Ministers and as the former Commissioner herself stated, security costs are incurred whenever and wherever the Prime Minister travels. Right. Moving forward, of course, I'm happy to follow all the advice and recommendations that the Commissioner had to make, including surrounding personal and private travel.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not talking about the cost of the transportation and security. I'm talking about the commercial value of a gift. I never actually mentioned the Prime Minister, by the way. I just described some conduct, and he immediately attributed it to himself. But it's funny, an island like the one on which he vacationed, they're advertised for, and they cost a lot of money, Mr. Speaker, approximately $200,000 for the amount of time and the number of people the Prime Minister had vacationing as part of this gift. Does he believe that a minister, any minister, should repay an improper gift of that size?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians watching Question Period could be alarmed at the tone and the attacks that come back and forth in this place, but they should be reassured that above the partisanship, above the mudslinging, we have an ethics commissioner who looks into allegations, that looks into behaviours, and makes determinations on what happened and what needs to happen going forward. And I actually am pleased that the ethics commissioner made clarifications, significantly put forward recommendations recommendations. I accepted responsibility and have endeavoured and will commit to following all the recommendations of the Ethics Commission.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Section 121(1)(c) of the Criminal Code says, and I quote, it says it is an offence for a government official to, quote, accept from a person who has dealings with the government a commission, reward, advantage, or benefit of any kind for themselves or another person. If the Prime Minister learned that one of his ministers had accepted a benefit from someone who had dealings with the government, what would he do about it?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Canadians understand and appreciate that the function of an opposition in this parliamentary system is to ask tough questions and challenge the government. What is important to know, however, is we have a system that goes above the partisan attacks and the personal mudslinging and actually charges the Ethics Commissioner with looking into issues and allegations of this, making findings of fact, and making determinations on the path forward. I have fully accepted all the findings, all the advice, all the recommendations by the Ethics Commissioner. Thank her for her work, and we'll keep going.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I merely quoted sections out of the Criminal Code without referring to the Prime Minister. He instantaneously assumed that I was making a personal attack against him. This is a Prime Minister who accepted a gift that's worth approximately $200,000 from someone who is seeking a $15 million grant from the Government of Canada. Does he dispute these facts?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the issue we've run into with this particular member opposite before is he was able to say things in the House of Commons out from under parliamentary immunity that he would no longer repeat outside. And the fact is that we have an ethics commissioner whose job is to look at the facts to determine what is public, what is private, what is responsible, what is not, what is personal attacks, what is not. And I accepted responsibility, accept the full findings and recommendations of the ethics commissioner, and that's what reassures Canadians.
The member for Carleton.
Section 121(1)(c) of the Criminal Code makes it an offence for a government official to, quote, accept from a person who has dealings with the government a commission, reward, advantage, or benefit of any kind for themselves or another person. Was the Prime Minister aware of this section of the Criminal Code when he accepted a $200,000 gift from a person who has dealings with his government?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, above the mudslinging, we have an Ethics and Conflict of Interest Commissioner who is tasked with looking into the facts of issues and making recommendations and holding parliamentarians, all parliamentarians, to account. When the Commissioner put forward her report, I fully accepted that report, took responsibility, and have been implementing the advice and recommendations she made from it. The opposition may continue to want to sling mud and make personal attacks, but Canadians can be reassured that the Ethics Commissioner is doing her job, has done her job.
The honourable member for Carleton.
But her job does not include investigating matters under the Criminal Code. There are two essential elements to Section 121(c) of the Criminal Code. A government official accepting a benefit, one, from a person who has dealings with the government. Two, did the Prime Minister accept a benefit from the Aga Khan? Does the Aga Khan have dealings with the government?
Simple. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, these are all questions that the Ethics Commissioner dug into in her report and made clear recommendations on. What's clear, however, is that on this side of the House, we value and respect the work done by officers of Parliament. On that side of the House, they continue to question the work of the Ethics Commissioner, just like they did, Mr. Speaker, for 10 years of insulting, minimizing, discarding the advice of officers of Parliament. That's what they did when they were in government. We take a different approach. We respect the great work done by our officers of Parliament.
Excellent. Member for Carleton.
Well, it's not the Ethics Commissioner that's responsible for investigating matters under the Criminal Code, Mr. Speaker. The RCMP is responsible for that. Did the Prime Minister or his office ever discuss his island vacation with any member of the RCMP.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again, the Ethics Commissioner did a complete and thorough investigation at the request of members opposite. I cooperated with the Ethics Commissioner on every step of the way, and her report is fulsome and rigorous. If they choose to question the work that she's done, the quality of work that the former Ethics Commissioner did, well, that's their prerogative. And quite frankly, it's consistent with the approach that the Conservative government under Stephen Harper always had, which is minimize, discard, and ignore the great work done by officers of Parliament.
Right. A member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. On behalf of the opposition, we fully endorse the Ethics Commissioner's finding of guilt for this Prime Minister. He wrote 4 sections of the ethics law, and now he wants to turn himself into the victim because the opposition is asking legitimate questions about Section 121 of the Criminal Code. Does he dispute that he accepted thousands of dollars of benefits from somebody who had official dealings with his government and with him personally?
The Prime Minister.
And Mr. Speaker, in this place, we have a system where different parties ask questions and hold governments to account, and it works very well. But what also works very well is Canadians can be reassured that above the mudslinging and personal attacks, we have officers of Parliament, like the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, who will dig into the actual facts of the matter, make thorough investigations. We worked with the Ethics Commissioner throughout the fall and can say we fully accept all her findings and have moved forward on accepting all her recommendations.